close your eyes and forget everything you think you know about ancient history. We have been told a story of Bronze Age farmers, of copper chisels, and of thousands of slaves hauling stone under a scorching sun. But when you stand at the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza, that story starts to dissolve into the desert heat. This isn't just a pile of rocks. It is a 6 million-ton mathematical equation written in stone. The pyramid is aligned to true north with an accuracy of within 3/60ths of a degree. To put that in perspective for you, the Greenwich Observatory in London, built thousands of years later with modern telescopes, wasn't that accurate. There is a famous story about the early explorers who tried to measure the base. They found that the four sides are almost perfectly equal, with a margin of error of less than 2 inches over a distance of 750 feet. It's a level of precision that we struggle to achieve today with high-frequency lasers and GPS. But here's the real kicker. The Great Pyramid isn't four-sided. In the 1940s, a British Air Force pilot named P. Groves flew over Giza and noticed something strange in the late afternoon sun. The faces of the pyramid are actually concave. It is an 8-sided structure, a feature so subtle it can only be seen from the air during the spring and autumn equinoxes. Why go to such impossible lengths? Why build a structure that tracks the subtle wobble of the Earth's axis, a phenomenon known as axial precession that takes 26,000 years to complete? The Romans built for centuries, but the builders of Giza, they were building for cosmic time. We are looking at a masterclass in geodetic engineering. The Great Pyramid is essentially a scale model of the northern hemisphere of the Earth. If you take its height and multiply it by 43,200, you get the polar radius of our planet. This isn't a coincidence. It's a signature left by a civilization that knew exactly where and what they were. Let's walk inside, past the narrow corridors and into the heart of the structure, the King's Chamber. This is where the story of copper chisels completely falls apart. The walls here are made of red granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, quarried from Aswan, over 500 miles away. Imagine the logistics. Each of these granite beams weighs between 50 and 80 tons. To move just one of them from the quarry to the site would be a nightmare today. But the Egyptians didn't just move them. They lifted them 150 feet into the air and placed them with such precision that you can't even slide a credit card between the joints. In the late 19th century, Sir William Flinders Petrie, the father of modern Egyptology, examined these granite blocks with a jeweler's loupe. He found something that sent chills down his spine: spiral grooves in the stone. These weren't marks of a chisel, they were marks of a drill. Petrie calculated that the pressure required to cut through granite at that rate was over 2 tons. He famously remarked that these ancient builders were using tools that made our modern drills look like toys. He was looking at evidence of high-speed, high-pressure industrial machinery in a world that supposedly hadn't discovered iron yet. Then there's the sarcophagus. It is a single block of granite hollowed out with such force that the drill bits must have been made of sapphires or diamonds. But here's the mystery. The sarcophagus is wider than the entrance to the chamber. It wasn't put inside, the chamber was built around it. Some researchers today, like Christopher Dunn, have used ultrasonic testing on these stones. They found that the surfaces are so flat they are within a few thousandths of an inch of being optically flat. In the modern world, we only achieve this level of flatness in high-precision machine parts, not in 80-ton blocks of rock. If the King's Chamber wasn't a tomb, and remember, no mummy was ever found there, then what was it? Many engineers look at the design and see a resonator. The chamber is made entirely of resonant granite, rich in quartz crystals. Granite is piezoelectric. It generates an electric charge when put under stress. There is a haunting story of a researcher who spent a night alone in the king's chamber. He began to hum, and as he hit a specific frequency, somewhere around 440 hertz, the entire room began to vibrate. The walls weren't just stone, they were like the body of a violin tuned to a specific harmonic. Above the chamber are 5 relieving chambers. Egyptologists say they are there to protect the room from the weight of the pyramid, but engineers point out that they are far over-engineered for that purpose. They look like acoustic baffles, designed to amplify or tune the energy coming from the earth itself. The Great Pyramid sits on a massive limestone plateau, directly underground an aquifer. As the Nile used to flow near the pyramid, the movement of water through the limestone would have created vibrations, a phenomenon known as pumping. Could the pyramid have been a power plant, a massive geomechanical engine? We know that the white Tura limestone that once covered the exterior was non-conductive, while the granite inside was highly conductive. It's the exact layout of an insulator surrounding a conductor. We are forced to ask, were the ancients masters of a form of energy we have completely ignored? They didn't burn oil or coal. They may have tapped into the very vibration of the planet. It sounds like science fiction until you look at the math, and the math doesn't lie. If you leave the king's chamber and descend, you enter the Grand Gallery. This is without a question the most bizarre architectural space in the ancient world. It's a soaring, corbelled hall, nearly 30 feet high, slanted at a precise angle that defies logic for a mere passageway. Look at the walls. They are made of massive limestone blocks, stepped inwards with such precision that the entire gallery acts like a giant acoustic horn. Along the base of the walls, there are 27 pairs of strange slots cut into the stone. Egyptologists used to say these were for wooden beams, but there is no sign of wear, no friction marks, no rot. There is a compelling theory by modern mechanical engineers that the Grand Gallery was a massive track for a counterweight system. Imagine heavy granite blocks sliding up and down these tracks, acting like a hydraulic ram to tune the vibrations of the pyramid. During his survey, Flinders Petrie noticed something even more baffling. The floor of the gallery isn't smooth. It has a central trench and side ramps. It looks less like a hallway and more like the internal housing of a massive machine. It feels industrial, not ceremonial. We have to talk about the portcullis system, the 3 massive granite slabs designed to seal the king's chamber. They weren't just doors, they were fitted into grooves with tolerances so tight that they functioned like a valve. This suggests the pyramid could be turned on and sealed to maintain internal pressure. Why build a 150-foot-long, perfectly angled gallery just to reach a small room, unless the gallery itself was the point, unless it was designed to accelerate something, vibration, water, or perhaps an ancient form of energy we are only just rediscovering? Moving away from the mechanical, let's look at the air shafts. For decades, we believed these tiny 8-inch wide tunnels were for ventilation. But there's a problem. They aren't straight. They bend to avoid other structures, and they exit the pyramid at very specific angles. In the 1960s, astronomer Alexander Badawi and Egyptologist Virginia Trimble made a stunning discovery. They realized that in 2500 BC, these shafts pointed directly at specific stars: Orion's Belt and Sirius in the south, and Thuban and the Little Dipper in the north. These weren't air vents, they were star shafts. They were locked on to the heavens. The pyramid wasn't just built on Earth, it was anchored to the stars. It was a cosmic clock tracking the movement of the heavens over thousands of years. There is a fascinating story about the Gantenbrink's door. In 1993, a German engineer sent a small robot named Upuaut II up the shafts. After 200 feet, the robot stopped. It found a small limestone door with 2 copper handles, the only metal found in the entire pyramid. Why put a door inside a shaft that no human can fit through? And why the copper handles? In electrical terms, copper is a conductor. It suggests that these shafts weren't just for looking at stars, they were part of an internal circuitry, perhaps drawing energy from the atmosphere. This brings us to the Orion correlation theory. If you look at the 3 pyramids of Giza from above, they aren't in a straight line, they are offset, mimicking the exact alignment of the 3 stars in Orion's belt. The builders were literally creating heaven on earth, mapping the stars onto the desert floor with 6 million tons of stone. We cannot talk about Giza without the silent guardian, the Great Sphinx. For a long time, we were told it was built by Khufu's son, Khafre, around 2500 BC. But the stone tells a different story, one that Egyptologists have been fighting for 30 years. In the early 90s, Dr. Robert Schoch, a geologist from Boston University, looked at the weathering patterns on the Sphinx's body. He didn't see wind erosion. He saw vertical, undulating fissures that only come from one thing: thousands of years of heavy, torrential rainfall. Here's the problem. It hasn't rained like that in Egypt since the end of the last ice age, at least 10,000 years ago. If the Sphinx shows signs of water erosion, it means the statue and perhaps the foundations of the pyramids were built at the end of the Ice Age, long before the Egyptians even existed. This is the forbidden timeline. It suggests that we aren't the first advanced civilization on this planet. It suggests that Giza might be a legacy from a lost origin civilization, a culture that was wiped out by a global cataclysm at the end of the Younger Dryas. There is a legend of the Hall of Records hidden beneath the Sphinx's paws. In the 1990s, ground-penetrating radar actually detected a rectangular chamber exactly where the legend said it would be. But to this day, no official excavation has been allowed. Is the Sphinx the keeper of a prehistoric library? Is it a time capsule left by the survivors of a lost world? If the Sphinx is 12,000 years old, then everything we know about the rise of human civilization is wrong. We often hear that the Egyptians used copper saws and sand to cut stone, but try cutting a piece of granite today with copper. The copper wears away before you even make a scratch. To cut 80-ton granite blocks, you need something much harder and much faster. In the Petrie Museum in London, there are fragments of drill cores from Giza. If you look closely at the grooves, the feed rate, the distance the drill travels per revolution, is 500 times faster than a modern diamond-tipped drill. This is the lost technology mystery. How do you achieve that kind of power with hand tools? Some researchers suggest sonic drilling, using high-frequency sound to vibrate the stone molecules until they shatter, allowing a copper tube to slice through it like butter. There is a muddle story about ancient Egyptian statues made of diorite, a stone so hard you need a tungsten carbide tool to carve it today. These statues have perfectly symmetrical faces, measurable by computers. You cannot do that with eye and a rock and a chisel. We see evidence of lathe marks on giant stone sarcophagi. We see scoop marks in granite quarries that look like someone took a giant ice cream scooper to solid rock. It suggests a technology that could soften stone or cut through it with zero resistance. Were they using the vibrations of the pyramid to power these tools? We think of technology as electronic, but the ancients may have mastered phononic or acoustic technology, using sound as a physical force. The Great Pyramid is a giant library of universal constants. If you take the perimeter of the base and divide it by twice the height, you get pi, 3.14. If you take the sum of the diagonals of the base, you get the number of years in the precession of the equinoxes. The speed of light is 299,972,458 meters per second. The latitude of the Great Pyramid is 29.972458 degrees north. If you think that is a coincidence, you aren't paying attention to the math. The builders knew the size of the Earth, they knew the speed of light, and they knew the exact weight of our planet. The pyramid is a metric of the universe, a standardized unit of measure left for a future civilization to find. Why go through all this effort to hide math in a tomb? Because a tomb is a place of death, but a monument of math is a place of rebirth. They were trying to preserve the blueprint of creation through a global cataclysm. This is why the pyramid has no inscriptions, no hieroglyphics, no King Khufu was here. It was built in a universal language, the language of geometry and mathematics, a language that doesn't change even if empires fall and tongues are forgotten. We're looking at the work of a civilization X, a culture that operated at a level of consciousness that integrated science, spirituality, and art into a single, unified structure. As we stand back and look at the Giza Plateau, we realize we aren't looking at the past, we're looking at a mirror. Giza challenges our arrogance. It forces us to ask, did we really progress or did we just forget? We live in a world of plastic and steel, built to last a few decades. The builders of Giza built to last until the stars themselves moved out of alignment. They didn't build for their own glory. They built to keep a flame of knowledge alive through the dark ages of history. The Great Pyramid is a machine for eternity. It is still there, still humming, still waiting for us to be smart enough to understand its code. It is an invitation to remember our true potential. History isn't a straight line from primitive to advanced. It's a cycle of awakening and forgetting. And right now, the world is starting to wake up. If you want to build for today, use your hands. But if you want to build for the end of time, build with the stars. Decoding the past, surviving the future.